Welcome to the Memories of a Moonbird podcast, exploring life one story at a time. Hello friends, I'm Daniel Sherrill. Today on the show, she's a Coast Guard veteran who loves the sea but couldn't shake the feeling that she belonged in the skies. Over the last 8 years, she's engulfed herself in the wonderful world of aviation, fulfilling her dreams of flying and sharing her passion for it in the process. Today, she's a helicopter and airplane pilot who spends her days transporting life-saving organ transplant teams around Southern California. She's also dedicated herself to a life of adventure in and out of the workplace, always seeking the next big challenge. She says, quote, "My mission is to spread the message that anything you dream is possible, and I want to encourage people to go after what they want in life without letting fear get in the way." Please welcome the awesome Diane Dollar. Diane, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Truly my pleasure. So let's jump right in. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Maryland and raised in Atlanta, Georgia.
Nice. What was that like growing up?
It was good. I love the South. I miss it a lot. I miss my family a lot. Everybody's still out on the East Coast, and I was the only one that managed to fly away to the West.
What brought you out to California originally?
Originally, I came out to California because I got a job as a flight instructor out of Long Beach Airport.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And what was little Diane like as a kid?
Little Diane, she's a wild one. Just total daddy's little girl. You know, like anything he was doing, I wanted to do. Anything, you know, he got into kayaking down whitewater rivers, and I got into that. And, you know, he got into motorcycles. I got into riding dirt bikes, and, you know, anything he did, I wanted to do. Always wanted to be high. I was always climbing on things. And I guess that hasn't really changed much.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Even in my house, I would like climb up in the doorways, and people would just was reading a book, and people would be walking under my legs, just like, oh, there's Diane, just like up in the doorway again, or outside in a tree somewhere. But
are you an only child?
I'm not. I have quite a big family, actually.
Do tell.
Yeah. So my family was a little unique. My parents adopted quite a number of kids from different parts of the world. I have a total of 8 adopted or fostered siblings.
Wow.
And then it's me and my 2 biological sisters. So quite a big family.
That's amazing. Now, do you guys all get together for the holidays for a big family reunion kind of thing?
Yep. So my mom recently changed our family holiday to Passover instead of Christmas. So I guess too many competing families with, you know, people having significant others and having to spend time with their families. So my mom was like, nope, Passover. Everyone has to come home in April. So.
And do you guys all get along pretty well?
For the most part, you know.
Yeah. Well, all families have their things, you know.
Yeah, you know, we've all got our stuff. I'm closer to some siblings than others. For the most part, we all get along pretty well. Yeah.
Very cool. So what were you doing before you decided to become a helicopter pilot?
Well, when I was 17, right after high school, I joined the Coast Guard. And I did that for 4 years, worked various jobs. But my main job, I was a mechanic. I was a diesel mechanic on a 110-foot patrol boat out of Miami, Florida. I knew that college right after high school wasn't for me. I had no idea what I wanted to do in life, and I knew I wanted to do something more hands-on and adventurous. I wasn't very studious. Senior year of high school, I homeschooled myself because I hated going to school so much. So I got my packages every week, and I graduated 3 months earlier than the rest of my friends. And
oh, cool.
Yeah, just decided, you know what, I'm gonna up and get out of here. So yeah, that's what I did.
So was there anything specific that made you decide to pursue a life in the skies?
Well, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with space. I wanted to be an astronaut so badly, and you should have seen my room. I had, you know, space shuttles all over my walls, and stars and planet wallpaper on my ceilings. And I had a whole mural that was like you were sitting on the moon looking down at the earth.
No joke. I had the exact same mural on my wall.
Did you? Oh my God.
Huge, the whole wall. Yeah. I was obsessed with space. I mean, I still have like pictures, you know, here and behind me. I know the people listening can't see, but I have a lot of my space pictures up here, and I'm a huge space fan. Oh my God.
So, awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, the obsession with just aviation, space, it started pretty early, but I think it really became something I wanted to do when I was in the Coast Guard. Originally, I was stationed at a small boat station up in Cape Disappointment, Washington, which, yep, there is a place called Cape Disappointment, Washington. I thought my company commander was joking when he gave me those orders. He was like, "You're going to Cape Disappointment." Yep. So I worked there on a small boat station. We were a search and rescue station at the Columbia River Bar, which is some of the most treacherous waters in the entire world. In the wintertime, we'd get up to 30, 40-foot breaking surf that we'd go out in on these rescues. And a number of times we used the helicopters on scenes during search and rescue missions. And I'm down there freezing my butt on a boat, and I'm looking up there like, why am I down here? I need to be up there. That's where I want to be. And I knew I wanted to do something in the realm of helping people. And it just so happened I wanted to be a Coast Guard helicopter pilot, but you needed a college degree to become an officer in the Coast Guard. And I was stationed at two of the busiest stations in the Coast Guard, so I didn't really have time to get a degree while I was in. Then I found out that I could actually use my GI Bill to go to flight school when I got out of the service. So
very cool.
That was a much faster track. I didn't do too well in the military. I mean, I did, but I didn't. I was a little bit too much of a, free spirit, if you will. Like, I speak my mind, and people in the military don't really like that very much, especially at a lower rank that I was. So, that wasn't great. But it just was a better path for me, and I could still accomplish what I wanted to doing it on the civilian side. So that's the direction that I went.
So how long was the journey from you deciding, I think I want to be up there in the helicopter, to doing what you're doing today? How long did that whole process take?
That took about 10 years. Yeah, about 10 years.
How does someone become a helicopter pilot? Is it the same as just going to flight school as you would for a fixed wing aircraft?
Yep, you just show up. As long as you got the money, they're willing to train you.
How much does it cost? How much does it cost to become a helicopter pilot?
That's the unfortunate part about this industry, is it costs a pretty penny. I think my entire training altogether cost about $200,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's substantially more than a college education.
And I got an associate's degree out of it as well. The only way that they would pay for my flight training was if it was attached to some sort of a college degree program. So I went through an online school that partnered with the flight school that I went to in Arizona, in Prescott, Arizona. And I did an online school for 2 years where my flight school actually counted towards college credits, which went towards a associate's degree in applied science of flight. So got a lot of bang for my buck out of the GI Bill. That was only 2 years of school. And then I used the remaining 2 years, took some classes here and there at Embry-Riddle. And also it helped me get my commercial and instrument ratings in fixed wing as well.
Do you like to travel?
I love to travel. Love it.
Where's the first place you ever went outside the United States?
Ethiopia, actually.
Wow, fascinating.
Yeah. My dad, he's a cardiologist, and growing up, he did a lot of doctors abroad work, mostly between El Salvador and Ethiopia. On most of his trips, he would take at least one of us kids with him, one or two of us. So on this particular trip, I was 12. And he took my sister and I to Ethiopia for 2 weeks on a medical missions trip.
What was it like?
I think it was the single-handed most influential experience of my childhood. I would have to say hands down.
I'm going to ask why.
Yes. One, it was the first time out of the country experiencing any sort of other culture, but it was also the most humbling experience in my childhood. And that was kind of the mission that my dad had, right? He wanted to take us to a developing country.
Perspective exercise, yeah.
Yep. To kind of get perspective and humble us a little bit and make us see how fortunate we are to live the life that we do. And also just to instill that gene in us, I guess, that he wanted to instill in us. And it worked. We stayed at a little town called Soto and had running water every other 2 or 3 days, had to fetch water from the well, had to collect rain in buckets and shower with that. Got to experience some of the local culture as well.
And how old were you when this happened?
I was 12.
So how did 12-year-old Diane handle that? Did you embrace it or were you upset?
Oh, no, I 100% embraced it. I'll tell you a story. My dad likes to tell the story all the time. So we were taking a nap in the middle of the day at our hotel, and I woke up and I'm like, you know what? I'm bored. I think I'm going to go out. And, I didn't want to be rude and wake up my dad. So I left him a note, and the note said, "Hi, Dad. Sorry, I got bored. I'm wandering around." I didn't know how to spell wandering. So I wrote, "I'm wandering around. Be back later." And I just left that on his nightstand.
Oh my God, I'd freak out if I were your dad.
I left the building in a town that had massive hyena problems as well. So, yeah, as you can imagine, my dad woke up just in a complete. I think I took a couple of years off of his life with that one.
And did you come back home, or did he go out looking for you?
Well, he came out looking for me, and I was helping with laundry. Or something like with the locals down in the courtyard. They had this big laundry area, I guess, like a big concrete structure, and everyone was just washing their clothes. I was like, well, I'm bored, might as well help out. And yeah, that's where he found me. But yeah, a little mini dad heart attack. So that was pretty funny. So actually, I want to get a tattoo now that just says I'm wandering around.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
You transport life-saving organ transplant teams. I would love to hear all about this.
Yeah. So it's a really fascinating process. To get to where I am now, you have to have a certain amount of experience and flight time. So yeah, I've spent the last 7 years, building my flight time, working other various jobs. I was a flight instructor for a little bit, and then I worked tours in the Grand Canyon for about two years. Worked for a private owner for a little bit, got my fixed wing ratings that year. And I was actually on my way to the airlines that year. I had decided to go that direction because of 2 accidents that occurred in early 2018 of people that I knew and companies that I worked with. So I kind of took a step back from helicopters for a little bit and reassessed. They were pretty devastating accidents. So when you're in the industry for long enough, these things really are close to home. It's a small industry. The more people in the industry, at some point you're going to know somebody who's crashed, and that's an unfortunate dark truth of the industry that I've chosen to be in.
I wanted to ask you real quick about the crashing.
Sure.
I don't know helicopter stats, but when a helicopter crashes in general, is there a chance of survival, or is it always generally fatal like a plane crash?
I think it just really depends on the circumstance. There have been survivable helicopter crashes, just like there have been survivable airplane crashes. The smaller the aircraft, the more unforgiving it is, I would say. With helicopters, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
A lot of chances for, if you did have an accident, for things to go horribly wrong. But, I don't want to sit here and tell people that helicopters are unsafe by any means, because they're not. People hear about these crashes and they get spooked.
Well, that's just like driving in a car. To me, it's just another form of transportation, honestly.
Right. Fatal car crashes happen every single day. Yeah, it's just one of those things,
For people out there now today that might want to go take a helicopter ride, I'm just curious, do you have any passenger pet peeves or things you want to pass on to the everyday folk that if they ever step into a helicopter, how they should behave?
Yeah, just listen to your pilot, pay attention to the safety briefing, know how to get in and out of the aircraft, really pay attention to how to put your seatbelt on. It's interesting. And if you have any issues with females being pilots and you end up having a female pilot, don't make kitchen jokes or menstrual jokes or, be gross about it. It's that's something that I had to deal with on a weekly basis flying tours. You get all sorts of people in the aircraft. So that was definitely a big pet peeve, was when people made and they're offhanded comments. A lot of the time people are just like thinking that they're being funny, but in reality it's just like, hey man, like, come on, you can come up with something a little more original than that. I'd respect you a little bit more, but yeah. So, stuff like that would happen all the time. So if you're out there and you're going to take a helicopter ride, you end up having a female pilot, just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. Just be respectful, really.
Just be respectful. Your life is in their hands.
Yeah.
You don't want to piss off your pilot.
Yeah. First of all, why would you do that when this person has the control of the stick of the helicopter? It's like, are you kidding me?
I'd always joke about the red button on the, on the cycle. Like, just like, this is the annoying passenger ejection seat. You just better be careful back there.
As a female pilot in what has been predominantly a male field, how well have you been received? And is the field today just accepting and diverse?
Yeah. I think for the most part, I would say 90% of the time it has been fine. I haven't had any issues. When I first started, I was given a list of companies that I should avoid as a female pilot, which I thought was insane that was even a thing. And so that kind of a thing still happened. one of the companies that was on that list recently, I think last year, just started hiring female pilots again. They had fired their chief pilot. And I heard they hired a couple of female pilots this last year. So
cool.
I was happy to hear that. That's awesome. But as in regards to companies treating me different, not so much. In regards to passengers receiving me as a female pilot, I've had issues like I mentioned. Mostly when I was flying tours, just because you get such a huge amount of people coming through there. I'd fly 4 tours to the Grand Canyon a day for 2 years, and you get a lot of types and a lot of people, a lot of personalities. So it was something that we'd have to deal with sometimes. And some people just flat out refuse to fly with a female pilot. And we'd look around and be like, okay, well, if you don't want to fly with me, you can fly with her or like looking around the room. We're all female staff that day. And it's just like, okay, I guess you're not going to the Grand Canyon then. Sucks for you.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was.
Or if someone's giving you shit while you're flying, you can just tell them, well, hey, if you want to open the door and fly back on your own. Yeah,
exactly. I'm like, well, the door's right there, man. You're like more than welcome to get out if you'd like, But yeah, I mean, I had female pilot friends that have had to I had one friend, she was starting the helicopter, and the guy leaned forward and he goes, hey, you're not on your period, are you?
Holy shit.
Like as she's starting the helicopter up, and I was, and she was so, when you're in those moments, you're so taken back by how ridiculously rude people can be that you just don't know what to say. You're just like, and in that case, like she would have had the complete right to shut the helicopter down and be like, get out, I'm not flying you, go talk to someone, talk to someone at the front desk and get your money back.
Yeah. Or just come back with some really crass comment,
I know, but oh my gosh, I would hope that I'm witty enough that I could just come back with comebacks like that. But sometimes I've seriously been stumped where, on my way back, I'm just like, oh man, I could have just said this and that.
Yeah. And you're driving home going, fuck, what I could have said.
I should have said that to that dude. Like, what the hell? And you know what? It's not even only coming from men. This is also coming from females. So this is not just a male to female thing. I, had a passenger. She was a French lady, and I introduced myself as her pilot, and she's like, you're a pilot? Oh my gosh. And she just threw up her arms and made this huge deal in the middle of the lobby. And needless to say, I didn't fly her that day. But so, it happens with females as well. It's just kind of a social stigma that I think people just need to get over.
I agree.
And I think people need to stop referring to themselves as female pilots. Stop using that hashtag. It's not hashtag female pilot. It's just hashtag you're a pilot.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be that separation anymore. And I'm guilty of it. I used to use that hashtag all the time. It's like a weird way that people have fetishized it in a weird way. Like, hashtag female pilot. We need to just kind of get away from that, I think, because I think people need to change their mindset about it. We do the same job. It's not different. So
I agree.
Whether you're a female or a male, you're going through the same stuff. So
what's the Reader's Digest version of how you went from doing the tourism stuff and building up your hours to now doing this incredible thing that you do as a pilot?
That was all from a friend of mine who was working at the company I'm working at now. This industry is all built off of relationships. Getting jobs is all about who you know, that handshake.
Yeah.
Be nice to everyone. There's a lot of strong personalities in this industry. And I think it's really important you stay humble and you just live every day with kindness and love, and people receive it well, and people want to help you out in the future. So that's something that I've really tried to live by. I'm not a mean person. So I try to just treat everybody with respect, and it's paid off in the end, especially in an industry that's super small. So I went from almost going into the airlines. I had gone through a breakup with a long-term relationship, and I was heading into the airlines, and I just realized it wasn't the type of flying I wanted to do. I wasn't going to be helping people. I would just be like a bus driver, and it didn't really sit with me. And I was already lined up to work for SkyWest Airlines. I had my start date and everything, and I just did a complete 180. My friend called me. He's like, hey, we need people. We need help. Are you interested? So I was like, oh, actually, yeah, like I would be. Something that was really enticing about it. It's a twin engine helicopter. So for me, that's just added safety, also learning something new, getting into a bigger aircraft. I'm still advancing my career. And now I can finally get into a job where I'm helping people.
Well, I'm actually curious, how does the protocol for this work? Are you on call 24/7 and you just suddenly get a call, hey, we need you. We got to get this thing to somebody?
So we're all on a 10-hour on-call day. So I work 4 days a week from 4 a.m. until 2 p.m. During that time, I'm at work. So I zombie drive to work and, pop in, hey, are there any flights? No. Okay, I'm going to go safety nap.
Yeah.
And just go back to sleep. And if there's a call, then they just give us a call and let us know, like, hey, there's a flight. And usually it's not super immediate. We usually know at least an hour in advance if we have a flight or not. And they have to get the OR ready, the surgeon's there, et cetera, et cetera. So
how long does it take from the moment they nudge your shoulder and go, hey, if you can wipe the drool off your pillow, you got to go get this organ to somebody?
Yeah.
How long from that moment till you're in the air?
The shortest time was maybe like a 30-40 minute warning, just like, hey, by the way, you got a flight,
I'm sorry, I mean, like, how long does it actually take for you physically to get in a jumpsuit, run out to the helicopter, click all the buttons, and get the bird in the air?
If I went as fast as I could, 10 minutes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, no, at first it took a little bit longer getting used to the startup procedure of a new aircraft, a more complicated aircraft, but I've started and stopped that thing so many times I could do it in my sleep now. So it's just like, you get it going pretty fast and get all your checks done and everything, usually within about 6 minutes on the first start of the day. If you've already started it once during the day, you don't have to do as many checks the next times you start it. So the first one takes a little bit longer, but after that, it's pretty quick. Pretty quick.
So you drive to Van Nuys,
Mm-hmm.
You're there, you get a notice, you hop in the helicopter, you fly, let's say, to Cedars, and then now is the organ come to Van Nuys Airport, and then you take the organ and the team to Cedars, let's say?
So yeah, it depends on what kind of a trip they're doing. So if they took a jet somewhere and brought the organ back to Van Nuys, then yes, we have the team, we have the organ, we'll take them from Van Nuys Airport back to the hospital where they already have the patient on the other side prepped for surgery, ready to receive it.
Wow. How long is the period of time from when the organ arrives at a hospital till they put it in somebody usually? Do you know?
I'm not sure. They usually have the OR, I believe, prepped and ready to go. Obviously when the organ gets put on ice, the timer starts, and different organs can last different amounts of time on ice.
Wow.
So preservatives. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I haven't, once I drop it off, I'm done. My job's done. So the only other time I actually got to see the front side of it, though, I actually got to go into the OR and watch the procedure of them recovering the organs we were taking with us, which was, an entire experience in itself. An incredible, really emotional experience. Never seen anything like it.
I'm curious that in the future, let's say Star Trek technology gets invented and they can, transport and beam stuff where it needs to go, and suddenly they can just take an organ from an accident or wherever, or someone's passed away, and they can just beam it directly to the transporter at Cedars-Sinai. That would eliminate the need for you to fly people around, of course. What would you do at that point with your helicopter career? Would you go back to Grand Canyon?
I guess I would become a machine transporter operator. I'd have to evolve with the times, I guess. Which they actually, in Maryland, I believe, they already transported the first organ via drone.
Wow, that's cool.
So I might be out of the job very soon. It's not far off,
But you really have to hope that the organ drone doesn't get mixed up with the Amazon Prime delivery, because that's going to be a bad day for two people.
What is this? We got shampoo? It's supposed to be a heart?
If you could close your eyes right now, Diane, and describe for somebody what it feels like to fly a helicopter, what would you say?
Freedom. When you get to the point where you don't have to think about it anymore, where you literally are, at the risk of sounding too cheesy, one with the aircraft, where it's kind of an extension of yourself. It's a really, really cool feeling. I did like this little 1-minute tutorial that I threw on my TikTok that, everyone's like, wow, it's so complicated. But I'm like, man, I don't. And when I was doing the tutorial, I used to be a flight instructor, so I'm used to explaining, what we're doing with the controls and everything. But once you get to a point where it's just an extension of you and it's just going where you want it to go. And you're flying in the air, and it's just like such a surreal thing. And I've been guilty of, and I think every pilot has, especially when you're flying tours, over and over and over again, and you're on the same route, et cetera. You get a little complacent and you forget that like what you're doing is so incredible. Like, holy crap, you're flying a fucking helicopter. Like, wake up. Like, this is really fucking cool. Cause you're just like, oh, that's my fourth one of the day. I'm getting tired. It's 120 degrees outside. Blah. And, I've had so many of these aha moments where I forget. And then all of a sudden I remember. And I look around, and it's just sort of like, it's like an awakening. It's like an awareness all of a sudden. Not that I'm sleeping while I'm flying. Just want to make that clear to the listeners. But, in a way, it's, you lose the awareness of how cool what you're doing is.
But just so you don't own the patent on that, as my dad would have said. It's every industry. I mean, if as a photographer, I could explain to people f-stop, shutter speed, and ISO and all the things. But when I just have a camera in my hand, I've been doing it for 35 years, and I don't really think about it. It's the same thing. It's second nature. Mm-hmm. It's an extension of my eye that's in my hand, and then people see images and they go, oh my God, So I think everything people do as humans, we all get a little complacent, and that's okay. It's part of the being human,
Yeah, totally. But yeah, it's so worth it.
I mean, don't fall asleep at the stick, please.
That's what my safety naps are for. But it makes it so worth it when you get those moments, though, flying across the desert and a monsoon comes by and you just get this from a distance, this spectacular show of electric lightning, happening. And then you've got a rainbow over here and you fly into the Grand Canyon and you've got, there's this one really magical moment. This little girl was sitting next to me. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. And she's like, are there rainbows? And I was like, I'll find you a rainbow. And I kind of just was thinking about just the way that the weather was at the moment. And oh man, I made just one turn and the entire cockpit just lit up with a rainbow. And she was like, she found it, and it was the most amazing. I was like, yeah, patted myself on the back for that. I just made this girl's year,
She's never going to forget that the rest of her life.
Yeah, those moments, and I was so happy that we found one.
What's the most incredible thing you've ever seen from a helicopter?
I mean, those days were pretty awesome. When there was just a little bit of weather in the canyon and you had, there were some days where you'd see 10 rainbows as you're flying through the Grand Canyon, which is one of the most beautiful, spiritual places on the entire planet. So that was just, days like that were just so cool. You'd fly in there, you're just like, wow, I got the best job in the entire world. I've flown at Sedona at sunset. Is pretty magical. There are some incredible days flying in Sedona. The airport there is really cool. It's up on a plateau, on a mesa.
Yeah.
So yeah, you land on there, and that's where everyone goes and sits to watch the sunset anyway. So yeah, it's just on the way that the sun hits the red rocks and you're just flying over them. It's just so incredible. It's amazing.
In the intro, we talked about you inspiring other people. And do you feel a sense of obligation, if you will, for lack of a better word, of trying to inspire other women to chase their dreams?
I would say the fact that I am a creative and I enjoy creating and I enjoy sharing my story. I do in a way for sure, because there aren't a lot of female pilots. There aren't a lot of pilots that are women. So I do feel like when people are young and they're impressionable, they do need role models in order to go into a certain industry. If you grow up, I didn't see women pilots when I was younger. That wasn't something that I saw that I was like, oh, I should do that too. It came, at least the helicopter thing came later on in life when I experienced it myself, just working with them. But I do think that we can get the numbers up from 5%.
Without a doubt.
And I think it's already happening. Yeah. And you're seeing it on more and more on Instagram too, of other women putting themselves out there as advocates for females to join this profession.
So if other young women are listening right now, what would you want to say to them?
If you want to go into aviation, don't let the fact that there aren't a lot of females doing it deter you. There's a place for us in this industry. there's a big place for us in this industry, and don't let that fear of the fact that not a lot of people have done it get in the way. Because I think sometimes people are like, well, I don't want to be a pioneer. Some people don't. I'm not saying like I'm a pioneer, but females going into this industry, we're all kind of pioneering, our gender going into it. Yeah. Just because the numbers are so low, it's still about 5%, especially in the helicopter world that are female. So I would say just get after it and don't let the naysayers deter you either. Because I've had people in my life, tell me I was crazy, or like, oh, you're not going to make a lot of money at first and blah, blah, blah. Just like, don't listen to them. Like if it's your dream, just get after it and just stay focused.
Yeah. Diane, I'm curious, with the pandemic going on, obviously, has COVID-19 affected your job?
So originally when they shut everything down, I believe when they stopped doing elective surgeries, the organ transplant stuff did slow down a lot, but it's been picking back up again. They're kind of playing catch up now. With some of these surgeries. So I was going into when they shut everything down, all non-essential. I mean, obviously we are essential, but my company was allowing me to go home around 9:00 and just be on call from home. Because I live close enough where if we did get a call, I'd be able to get in my car and there's no traffic, during the shutdown. So I was able to come home and be on call until I was off duty.
That's cool.
So they were trying to keep everybody, as distant as possible, which was cool. It was when they told everyone to come back to work, I'm like, but it was working so well. Like, yeah. Like, we just proved that we can do it from home. Why don't we just stay this way?
Do you have to wear a mask when you're flying?
That's kind of a big debate as well. A lot of people have made the argument that because of the restriction to maybe your oxygen, it's not a good idea for pilots to be wearing masks while they're flying. In the 109, there's a pretty good barrier between the pilots and the passengers in the back. So I stopped recently wearing it while I was flying if I have the barrier. If I don't have the barrier, I'll wear one, at least not like an N95 one where it's going to completely seal off the air, but I'll wear like a surgical mask to make sure that I'm not, transmitting anything if I'm breathing. But, definitely when we're handling the organs, when we're, letting the passengers in and out of the helicopter, then we definitely are wearing protective gear 100%.
George Floyd's death and the protests and all the awareness of systemic racism finally coming to the forefront of people around the world, not just in America. How did it touch you personally and in your career?
So personally, I 100% support people of color and the Black Lives Matter movement. I grew up with African brothers. I have two African brothers and one other. And my mom runs an organization in Ethiopia now as well. But, we even had to have the talk with them as well of, you're a Black young man in America. We want you to live through, your teenage years. And also we don't want you to get deported. So it was just one of those things where I did see it growing up where we had to be concerned for my brothers. I don't want my nephews to grow up in the type of society where they have to fear for their life because of the color of their skin. That's where a lot of my passion for it has come from. But I think that anybody with any sense would see what happened to George Floyd and just be completely heartbroken and disgusted over it.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So,
yeah. If you were elected president of the United States tomorrow, so now you're President Dollar, which would be a pretty cool name.
President Dollar.
What are the first 3 things you would do as president? Unlimited money, unlimited permission to make whatever changes you want in the world, or at least United States.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's a big question.
Yeah.
Universal healthcare, better schools.
That's 2.
Yeah. Better healthcare. Undo what Trump just did with birth control. And I'm in an industry where, I don't know. So Black Lives Matter in my industry, it's really interesting. Well, I've always, been very aware of the fact that there aren't a lot of Black pilots in the world, at least not in America. Maybe I wouldn't say in the world, but in America in 8 years, I think I've only met maybe 3 Black pilots in my career.
Wow.
And I think that, that does have a lot to do with systemic racism in this country, and also aviation's history of racism as well. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bessie Coleman. She was the first African-American female pilot.
Cool.
But she, because it was illegal for her to get her pilot's license, she had to learn French. She taught herself French and moved to France just so that she could get her pilot's license.
Wow.
That's like...
See, why are they not making movies about stuff like that? That's an awesome story.
Right. And they did that movie about the Tuskegee Airmen, and I didn't even see it, but I heard it wasn't the best movie either. Like they didn't do that great of a job giving them, what they really deserved, the ode to them. So yeah, I think the industry has a long way to go, but I think it's getting better. But I mean, as a white person, I can't really speak on the struggles of the Black man or woman in this industry either. So
how do you think we can affect positive change going forward generally in the world?
Well, I mean, I do have a strong belief in a collective consciousness. And I believe that if everybody really, really made an effort to live every day exuding love for one another, I think it would make such a huge difference. And it might sound a little bit, out there, cheesy, but I really do think it's true. It's something that I try to live by. And I
think that's beautiful.
On a personal level, trying to live by that, living every day with gratitude, living every day with love, trying to treat every encounter that I have with people with love. I have seen just personally in my life how it's changed my life. And I think that if we as a human race did that, I think it would just make such a huge difference in the world.
Do you think that the human race will survive and have a bright future overall?
Sure, when women are in power.
Only when they're not on their period, right?
Oh, right, of course.
One day a month we go to war. Isn't that the old joke, right?
God.
What's the most important thing you'd want to say to people who listen to this podcast? If there's one thing you want to leave people with, and we're not done yet, but I'm just curious.
Oh my gosh, it's so much pressure on just one thing. Okay. In regards to just literally everything in the world, what's one thing that I would want to tell the listeners?
If they take only one thing away from this podcast, what would it be?
Live every day with an extreme sense of gratitude.
I love it.
Yes.
Well, Diane, beyond being awesome, which you obviously are, when you're not off saving the world, what do you do with your spare time? So
I spend a lot of time at the beach. I recently picked up surfing again, so that's been kind of fun getting back into.
Cool.
I have a best friend of mine who also lives here. She's like my sister, my other half. We spend a lot of time together, and we always go on adventures, camping, hiking. I like to paint.
Cool. What medium?
I just acrylics.
Well, I'm going to rapid fire you a couple of questions. So sure. Top of your head, here we go. You ready?
Oh, no.
What was your favorite childhood book?
Pokey Puppy.
What's the first book or movie that made you cry?
We Were Soldiers.
Do you have a favorite food?
Indian.
What particular Indian dish, if you could only eat one?
Oh my gosh, malai kofta.
If you're going to recommend a place you think everybody should visit in their lifetime outside the United States, what would it be? I want to go back to Ethiopia as an adult, but there's so much rich human history in Ethiopia. I think it would be a really cool place for people to visit. What's your guilty TV pleasure? Guilty Vampire Diaries. I'm a sucker for a good vampire flick. That's hilarious. If you could sit down with anyone in human history, alive or dead, outside of your own family or Jesus, who would you choose and what would you drink? From all of human history. Yeah. Who would you want to sit with for 4 hours and what would you guys drink? Well, I know I drink bourbon. I'd love to sit down with Obama for 4 hours. Barack or Michelle? Can I have both of them? Sure, why not? Why not? Sure. The Obamas. The Obamas, yeah. If you could continue to live a healthy life, how long would you like to live, ideally? Age-wise? Yeah. I don't know, 85. Really? That's low. Do you think so? Yeah, my dad was 83 when he died. I think he should have been around for another 20 years. Yeah. I mean, and the caveat is you're healthy. Yes. Yeah, because I started seeing, I usually see, I don't know, I feel like after 85, you start seeing the decline and I'm just like, I'm good. I've lived my life. If someone wants to start changing my diapers, I'm out. You say 85? Are you sticking to that? No, okay.
happy and healthy and all of the above, I don't know. Just keep going until
Fuck it, right?
why not? I'd like to see what happens.
Are you afraid of dying?
I'm not afraid of the event of dying. Obviously, everyone has a little bit of fear of pain, if that were the case. I don't believe that this is it. So I mean, on a spiritual level, I don't think that, you die and then nothing happens. I think that I will be back in the spiritual realm, but I feel like my fear of dying would be more so the fear of leaving my loved ones behind, and what it would do to them. So
yeah,
I would say just not the actual death part, but who I would leave behind and how it would affect them. I think that's where most of my fear comes from.
Do you want children?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet. Yeah, I'm not 100% and I'm not 100% either way.
Diane, what do you think is the purpose of art?
An extension of the soul.
Nice.
I just came up with that.
That's very good.
Thank you.
If I could magically transport you back in time, what would you want to tell your younger self?
Don't become a mechanic in the Coast Guard. Oh man. Oh yeah, I hated that job. So bad at it. Oh, okay, no, I wasn't like that bad at it, but it was one of those things where they're like, oh, there's a leak down in the bilge. You're small. Why don't you become a contortionist and go down there and try to find that? No, okay, on a more serious note, that was just the first thing that popped in my head. That's funny. I learned something new about myself. Didn't have much time to think about that one.
I love it.
So I don't know what I'd tell 10-year-old Diane. Keep dreaming big. Sometimes people don't dream big enough.
I agree.
Like even with flying, I've accomplished this. I'm here. I'm doing it. But I have bigger dreams. Also, I'm going to start this. I'm going to start I told you about my podcast that I'm going to be starting soon.
Why don't you tell the listeners about it right here, actually, what it's going to be like, because then I can help you plug it.
Oh, cool. It's the Forever on the Fly podcast, YouTube show. Basically, it's going to be all things aviation, inspiration, education, and, adventure and fun. So we're going to be interviewing people of all sorts inside the industry and bringing a lot of color and fun and something new and fresh to an industry that can sometimes be a little bit dry and gray. It's a very technical industry. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of old souls in this industry. But so I think bringing something like fresh and exciting is going to do it some good, especially during times where, especially these days when a lot of pilots are furloughed. Some people aren't doing so hot in the industry. So, I think bringing exciting guests and conversations that some people are maybe afraid to have because they're afraid of change in the industry. And that's what I want to bring to the forefront.
Well, that sounds awesome. And I sincerely can't wait to hear it. I'm going to change gears and ask you a philosophical question. If someone asked you, hey, Diane, do you believe in God? What would you say? I
would say yes, but I think that means different things to different people.
Yes, it needs to be quantified.
Yeah. I mean, I think God as an entity is the universe. I think God's in everything. I think it's in all of us. I think it's in
like the Force in Star Wars.
Right. It is. I think, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a great metaphor that Star Wars made. You're right. The Force is God. And, in a sense of like personifying him, I think it's just a way that people have tried to make sense of something that's nonsensical, like something that we as humans are never really truly going to understand what it is.
Well, speaking of spirituality, what's your spirit animal?
My spirit animal is a bumblebee.
Why is that?
I don't know. I've always really related. Like, I don't know. I've always felt really one with the bees, and like they'll come and they'll just like land on me. And I do my best. I don't kill. It's so funny. I'll eat meat, but I won't kill a bug. Like I'll just put them outside. Like no matter what it is. Maybe not cockroaches.
Have you ever dressed up as a bumblebee for Halloween?
I have. 1 year in Vegas, I was a slutty bumblebee.
Oh, I was going to say you should send me a picture of that for your promotional email, but maybe not the slutty bumblebee.
No, it wasn't that slutty. I think it was just, I don't know.
Well, hey, the last thing we do on the podcast, as you may know, is a little game called 299 Philosophical and Life Questions with Moonbird. I've collected 299 philosophical and life questions. You get to pick two numbers, and then I will read you those two questions. What are your numbers, my friend?
31.
And?
15.
Number 31. Have you ever lost someone close to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you need more?
Only if you want to.
I've actually dealt with a tremendous amount of loss in my life. Unfortunately, Atlanta was really bad with drugs and addiction. And I think my junior, senior year, and even a couple of years after, I think that there were a total of like 10 funerals just at my high school. And,
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty bad. And I lost one of my best friends to suicide, and that was extremely that was difficult. That was life-changing. Rest in peace, Matt. It never gets easier dealing with loss.
No.
I definitely think that I've gotten better at processing it.
And you just learn to live with it instead of you can't fix it, so you just learn to live with it.
Totally, and it's especially being in the industry, we just to touch on what we talked about a little earlier about helicopter crashes, and they happen, and now every one of them feels close to home. Just being in the industry long enough, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller every year. I think something that I've learned to practice is just allowing emotions to making space for emotion in my body, right? I think that so many of the times when we deal with loss, I don't know if this is going off in a whole nother direction that maybe you don't want to go in.
I can always cut it out.
Yeah, that's true. Chop it off.
But I'm interested in what you have to say.
Yeah, I think that in my younger years, before I got into yoga, before I got into my spiritual work, I didn't know how to process emotion, and it would come out in a number of ways, and specific back pain for me. And I think so many of the times we label different emotions as either good or bad. And when we have a bad emotion, our body goes into that fight or flight response. And usually people don't want to feel bad emotions. So we push them down and we push them down and we push them down. And that manifests in so many different ways. Yeah. And it's just allowing those emotions to be there and knowing that that's what it means to be human. And it's okay to feel those, it's kind of relabeling emotions, not as good or bad, but just as what they are, right? If you're feeling sad, it's not a bad emotion to feel sad. You're just making space inside of yourself for that to exist, and for you to go through it and to process. And I think so many of the times people push those emotions away because they're just oh no, I need to be happy. I need to be happy. I need to be happy. And those are bad. And I don't want to feel that way because it doesn't feel good. But yeah, I think definitely dealing with loss and death, that's a practice that I've, of just meditating and sitting with those grieving emotions and going through them and allowing them to be there has really helped me process that kind of thing. But
that's awesome, actually.
Yeah.
Well, number 15 is nowhere near as heavy. Okay. Could you live without the internet?
Yes. I mean, in today's day and age, with all the technologies and everything and everything out there.
Let's just say the internet collapses. They turn it off.
Oh, I might get lost a lot. Especially in LA.
Well, hey, Diane, you are just awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. I wish you the best of luck with your career. Please fly safely.
You. Always.
And get out there and have a great day.
Thanks. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Friends and listeners, please check out Diane's amazing social media stuff. She's got some incredible videos online. You can check her out on almost every major platform. The username Forever on the Fly. That's Forever on the Fly. And hey, while you're flying around the internet, remember that Moonbird is now on Patreon, and even $1 a month really goes a long way. So please support the show at patreon.com/Moonbird. That's patreon.com/Moonbird. And if you'd like even more Moonbird in your life, and hey, who wouldn't? Head on over to memoriesofamoonbird.com or visit me on social media at Memories of a Moonbird. Stay safe.